let's call this meeting the Public Safety Local Income Tax Committee of the Monroe County Local Income Tax Council to order. Friday, August 21st, 8 a.m. First order of business is roll call and introductions. Do we want to do roll call first? Members, starting to my right, I guess. I'm sorry.
Me. All right, Kate Wiltz is here, Monroe County Council.
Scott Old, Milton Town Council.
Dave Rowell, City Council.
Isabel Piedmont Smith, City Council.
Yeah, and online members.
Richard Carter, Town of Steinsville.
Andy Ruff, City Council.
Perfect. I think that's all of our members, staff. I'm Larry Allen. I'm the interim council attorney.
Jeff McKim, City Controller.
Marjorie Rice, Corporation Council. Colleen Williamson, Deputy Clerk.
And we just had a new member or a new staff person come
Chief
in.
Deco, thank you for joining us. I don't know if any introductions need to be met. Is there anyone that people don't recognize from previous dealings? I don't think so. First order of business here, because this is the first time we've met this year. Councilmember Piedmont Smith is our outgoing chair. Election of chair. Do we have any nominations for chair?
Would like to nominate Isabel Piedmont Smith, because she's done such a great job.
Second. Okay, we have a first and a second. Roll call. Do you accept the roll? Sure. Sure. Just like it here. Councilmember Wilkes.
Yes.
Councilmember Oldham. Yes. Councilmember Roll. Yes. Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
All right, it's unanimous. Congratulations. Thank you, Councilmember Piedmont Smith, for being foisted into the job of chair again. I would be happy to turn the meeting over to you if you'd like to run it, or if you'd like to keep going through the agenda. I'm happy to do that.
Oh, I can go ahead. So we have City Controller Jeff McKim here to give us an overview of local income tax rates, revenues, and distributions. And thank you in advance for what you provided in our packet already.
Okay, great, and there will be, I'll describe what the changes are from there, because we have the new information. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. And I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this part, because this is just basic introduction, just to make sure that, since I'm not sure how many times some of the members here have done this, and just to kind of understand how the funding for dispatch works. So first of all, we have an overall local income tax rate of 2.14%. And this infographic shows it broken up by the different percentages that make up the different components of that income tax. But what we really care about is the box to the left that talks about the public safety total. So 0.25% local income tax rate is dedicated to public safety. And that actually is split into two pieces. The public safety answering point, or PSAP, which is the component of the rate that goes to dispatch, is actually comes out to 0.0631% income tax rate. So that's percentage of your gross adjusted gross income, taxable income. And then 0.1869% is for public safety overall, and that is what gets distributed to the Monroe County, City of Bloomington, Town of Ellisville, and Town of Steinsville for any of their public safety uses. So that that the PSAP dispatch, that 0.0631 comes off of the top and goes into dispatch. Now, where does it go? The actual PSAP lit rate, that 0.0631%, actually goes into a PSAP lit fund at the county. So the money does not, that tax does not go directly to the city. It goes directly to the county. There's another source of funding for dispatch, which is the E911 funds. Those are the funds that come from basically a tax that's on everybody's landline and cell phones. Those go to the county as well. The E911 expenses are used, those funds are used for equipment, not for personnel, and those are maintained at the cities, or at the county rather. So the county actually budgets monthly out of the E911, and so we never actually see those funds. For the PSAP lit funds, though, we do actually, through an interlocal agreement between the city and the county, we receive a transfer from the PSAP lit funds from the county to the city, which we then put in our PSAP lit fund, and we use that to actually fund the dispatch center and only the dispatch center. It just a kind of note, this might have come up in the past years, the city has commingled PSAP lit funds with PS lit funds in the same fund. That's not the way that it's supposed to have been done, and not the way it is supposed to be done. So a lot of time has been spent last year and this year accounting for all the PSAP money, separating out the expenses and revenues into a separate PSAP lit fund. So that conversion has been complete. Those funds are no longer commingled, but that has been an issue in the past. So now all we have to deal with is the PSAP lit fund in the city, which receives PSAP lit from the county. There are two problems here, and I have them as 1 and 2. They really should be reversed. So I'll start with number 2. The current budgets have still been underfunded. So this is a problem even with the existing system. The current budgets have been underfunded, which has become more of a problem now that the costs of the city's PSAP, or the city's dispatch budget has increased, mainly because of the implementation of the salary study at the city. And then Chief Decoff I think there's an opportunity to talk about the budget later, so you all may have questions about the budget itself from the chief. Yes.
Okay, so with PSAP in particular, weren't we aware of this issue and doing this sort of intentionally to spend down? Or am I completely misremembering?
Yes, there were and are significant, there were significant reserves on both the city side and the county side. There are no longer significant reserves on the city side. There are still on the county side. And I'll show you actually what, I'm going to use our 4B to show you what that looks like in just a minute. But so that's our kind of short-term problem, is that we still do have a funding gap. The longer term problem is that I think, as everybody knows, with current legislation, the current lit rate system is going away for budget year 2029. There could be additional legislation, but based on what we know now, there will be no more PS lit or PSAP lit. So that money is gone. The county will has significant kind of levers that they can pull to raise additional income tax, but the city does not, and regardless of what the county does, it will not be statutorily dedicated to PS lit or PSAP lit. That's something that we'll have
And can
to.
I jump in here too?
Yes.
Our interlocal agreement that we've had for decades was last revised in 2018, and it's in need of revision. And so I think as we think about the future and how we're gonna fund dispatch, assuming we're gonna keep a joint dispatch because it's pretty efficient, the county and the city is gonna have to get together and figure out how to, what are the right rates to set to fund that dispatch and the revisions to the current dispatch interlocal, which sets forth the location, the number of dispatchers, all of those things, and it's really out of date.
Hey, Jeff, I got a question.
Yeah.
So you said the differential, the gap is because of the implementation of the salary study. It looks like a significant amount. Has it been Has it been underfunded in the past?
Yes, I would not say that the gap is because of that. I think that it is at least is partially because of that, but that if in the past, and Kate kind of alluded to this, in order to maintain, because, let me go back to that, because the PSAP rate and public safety rate are all under that 0.25 cap. There has been an attempt to use reserves and keep the PSAP rate as low as possible in order to make sure that the city and county and Ellistown, Beltsville, and Steinsville has as much public safety money as possible. So, because if you keep that cap of 0.25 and you raise the PSAP rate, then everybody else gets less for all their other public safety functions. So there's definitely been an interest in keeping the funding of the PSAP budget as low as possible. And the reason why that's worked generally is because of the high number of vacancies at the dispatch center.
And is the 0.25% the maximum?
No, it used to be. It was when the whole public safety lit system was set up, but it is no longer the maximum.
And you're gonna talk about that. Are you gonna talk about that a little
I'll
bit?
talk about it,
more?
yeah. So let me just show you the cash flow issue that we're dealing with. Okay, so try to zoom in here. Okay, so I'm gonna look in particular first at the current situation, which is in yellow. And I want to explain the format that I'm using. I think the county people will probably be pretty familiar with this format. This is essentially the same format as the statement 4B, which is the official budgeting and cash flow statement that the state uses for budget. And so the idea behind the 4B format is that you start with your June 26th, your June 30th balance. So that's how you start with actual cash. So this is the amount of actual cash money in the PSAP lit account as of June 30th. Then you play it forward all the way to the end of this year and then the end of next year. So you play it forward by adding your remaining revenue that you expect. And this number is, a lot of times we're just kind of guessing or projecting. In this case, it's pretty exact because we have the only revenue this fund receives is the interlocal agreement. And we know exactly how much lit is the county still owes us and transfers on a monthly basis. So we know that we'll have exactly $1.469034 coming in from July 1st through December 31st of this year. Then we subtract out the unspent appropriations. So this is the way that the state has us, and the gateway system, which is how we have to manage this budget, has us handle expenditures. Now, this is a little bit of a problem. Basically, the assumption is that if you've got it appropriated, you're going to spend it, which is not really true if you've got vacancies. You know, the dispatch centers clearly had vacancies through June 30th, and we might get the chief to talk about that a little bit later. But the fact is that we know we're not going to spend all the unspent appropriations. It's just not realistic. And in fact, we did a little bit of analysis from the payroll side and found that we could have as much as $700,000 of unspent appropriations in payroll if we have the same level of, and we did this yesterday. So that's as of yesterday, if we had the same level of vacancies that we had yesterday through the end of the year. But this
Hopefully we can hire someone.
I certainly hope so too. But this is the way the state makes us budget in the gateway system. So this is the budget that I would have to submit as we go forward. Then you have the projected balance, which is just that June 30th cash plus revenue minus unspent appropriations. And so we wind up with $245,000, which is not very much in reserves. Now, in reality, because we know that won't all be spent, it's a little bit artificially low, but this is the way that I have to report it. Okay, then we move forward from the end of 26 through the end of 27. And we have, right now, we expect $3,096,136 or $137 in revenue if you all and the local income tax council does nothing. So that's kind of the do nothing, just let the system continue on. And this is gonna be a little bit more than you've seen in the packet because at the time, because we have new information, and that is that from the state budget agency, that we expect all county lit to increase by 5.38%. So that's basically the growth in the gross income, taxable income of Monroe County residents as a whole.
So that's factored into the 3 million.
Yes, yeah, so I've already adjusted for that, so that's, you do nothing, we get a little over $3.1 million in. Then we have the budget, which hopefully we will be talking about today. The budget is $4.8 million. So you see, if you essentially play it forward, you start with your December 31 projected balance, add your revenue, subtract your budget, you wind up with a deficit or a negative reserves of about $1.5 million. Now, I can't even submit that budget, so that's,
Right.
we have to do something. Even though it's a little artificial because we don't expect to actually spend all the budget, the system will not even let me submit this. So what can we,
When you speak about reserves, and then we also talk about maintaining an operating balance, those are the same thing.
yes,
Okay.
so this is a negative operating balance, just
Right.
we cannot do that.
And is there a recommendation for this account for an operating, or keeping a reserve or operating balance of a certain amount?
Generally, if any fund that has salaries, you probably want 20%.
Mhm.
I mean, that's kind of the way that's the way
20%
the
extra.
county. Yeah, you want like 20% of the budget, so, yeah, you want your reserves to be 21%. You definitely don't want them to be negative.
Right.
But I mean, you have to be able to,
Target, but.
yeah, but you have to be able to make that first payroll, you get income tax once a month. And so you have to be able to make possibly up to 3 payrolls before you would actually receive your first income tax payment. So that's our status quo, is a operating balance of about minus 1.5 million. Now, what can be done about that? The first, and I'm gonna just talk about 3 options. They're not mutually exclusive. They could all be done, they could all be combined in various combinations. The first one is entirely on the city side, and that is just to deappropriate some of the unspent salaries. So if we have the city council deappropriate, say, $700,000 in unspent balance, then we could reduce that number in our 4B statement. And then we wind up, but that doesn't get us all the way. That only gets us to about negative 766,000.
And then you don't have the opportunity to get fully funded if you deappropriate the salaries, correct?
Well, we couldn't get right, exactly. You have to figure out what the right number is. The other problem is just we would have to do that by the first week of September, and I don't even think that the city council schedule would even allow that to happen.
And
So-
I just want to make clear, I don't think that deappropriating salaries is anything that police want to do, is that correct?
Well, and I'm just kind of explaining
Yeah,
the
options,
the
right,
options.
I just want to make sure.
We got a problem and we've got a couple of different ways to solve it. The second,
Not fine, so this is unspent salaries,
Mhm.
yes,
and you don't want to create that money because you, go ahead, explain why.
well, no, I mean, some of it will never be spent, especially
Yeah.
up to yesterday, probably the most you would want to do is just assume that they get fully staffed tomorrow
Mhm.
and are fully staffed throughout the rest of the year. That's kind of the worst case scenario as far as spend down. But the savings there's one little problem though, is that also when you're not fully staffed, you rack up more overtime.
Yes,
And so you have to kind of account for that as well. So it's not quite as neat as just, let's look at our unspent salaries and deappropriate.
Okay, so the expectation is that we hire soon, and that will fill, right?
There's
So,
I'm gonna defer that to the chief, but we certainly hope so.
So hiring for dispatchers is complicated because there's a long training period. We only have so many trainers and so much space, so we can only hire so many at a time. We've got, what did we say, 10, did I say 10 openings? And when I did my presentation, we could not hire 10 people today to train all. We just don't have.
You want to come up to the table so that the microphone can
Yeah.
get better? Thank you.
Mike likes in the back.
So with the 10 openings, we couldn't hire all 10 today because we just don't have the people to train them. We don't have the space. And it's a very lengthy process. Inevitably, what happens is somebody starts going through the training and then they realize this isn't for me. So then they quit. So we're constantly in this hiring. And so would we spend it all this year? No, we will not spend that unspent salary. But I also don't want to give it up because I don't know if we'll get that with the way whole state funding stuff is. So.
Okay.
And then the number of dispatchers, if you remember, was set a few years ago when we had an outside consulting group look at our dispatch center and look at how it operated, staffing levels, and it was set by, it was the NOVAC report. I don't know if you remember that. But that's the report that evaluated dispatch center.
Yeah, I remember, no.
Let's say Dave, anyone, Dave.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have been on for a while, so I thought you might remember. I don't know if you heard of it. Okay.
So just, so whatever is unspent is gonna go back to the general fund. 8%.
No, it will stay in PSAP.
It will stay in.
Yeah, so,
But PSAP is going, I'm okay.
Yeah,
I'm new to this.
no,
Go ahead, I can
Same
get this
question.
inordinate.
yeah, no, it will stay in PSAP until it goes away in 29.
and at that point, it will be
We
absorbed.
would transfer everything to the general. Yeah, after that, all these.
Thank you for the quick.
So that's the option one, and that's kind of, option one is kind of a numbers game a little bit. And it sounds like it's really not even feasible because of the time. But I wanted to use it as the opportunity just to tell you that not all of the appropriations will be spent. We know that. So option number two is to have the county provide additional funds from their PSAP lit reserves. So you remember that like I mentioned before, the actual PSAP that is statutorily earmarked for dispatch, can't be used for anything else, goes into the county fund first. And then the county, by interlocal agreement, pays a certain amount to the city. Well, the county fund that receives the PSAP lit has built up a cash balance that is much larger than has actually been transferred to the city. And I'm showing that the county has about $3.2 million in reserves. Again, it can only be used for this. One reason is that, as Kate mentioned earlier, that there was kind of a conscious strategy to not overfund the budget, to be providing a lot of extra money into to the city. And then there was also, there are these supplemental lit distributions that occur each year, which is extra money in the lit trust fund that gets distributed. And in the case of PSAP lit, it all just goes to the county. It just sits there in that PSAP lit. So the county's got a reserve fund, PSAP lit. It's not usable for anything else. It's the only use of it. And I strongly suggest, I'm trying to be neutral. So.
Can I ask you a question? If that stays there, if it's not spent, that doesn't ever go away. It can continue to be used for dispatch after we have that change in 29.
I mean, I don't think that it makes the statutory earmarking of the use go away. The fact that there's no new money coming in, I don't think that means it can be used for anything.
Right.
So I would agree with that. So in other words, so let me just go over those numbers here. First, just so you can. Okay, so then option two, again, in this case, I picked $1.5 million in addition to all of the new lit. So in other words, all of the 2027 PSAP lit at the same rate we've already talked about, plus another 1.5 million county reserves get transferred as part of the interlocal agreement to the city. And that brings a total of about $4.6 million in revenue. And that gives us an operating balance of about $33,000. So we're just, and now in reality, because we're not gonna spend all those appropriations, that's actually probably okay. That would be an acceptable level of reserves. At the very least, it's greater than zero, so I could actually submit it in Gateway, which I couldn't for for status quo.
But you were saying that you would recommend reserves of 20%, which would be 20% of the 4.6 million is 925,000.
Well, remember those appropriations there, that $2.6 million, that's not all we know that's not gonna be spent. Unfortunately, unless you de-appropriate it, the state assumes it's going to.
Yeah, so don't de-appropriate it, and you have 7 months worth of the unfunded dispatch.
So the cash will still be.
That makes sense.
Just like the county and the city always wind up in a better financial position than your budget show that you're gonna show. Because nobody ever spends all their.
You have about 10 positions that have been vacant since from January to now. So those 10 positions have been funded but not spent, so that's extra cash that needs to be realized.
Okay, so that's the option 2. That's just moving money from the county, from the existing reserves. The disadvantage of both options 1 and 2 is that they don't really do anything to buffer us against the changes in 29. So the option 3 is that we increase the PSAP lit, PS lit rates to actually fund the budget. So in other words, don't leave the budget underfunded, but instead actually have the current revenues from the PSAP lit fund the budget. And that's, I did the numbers here in the scenario that you would increase the PSAP rate to the maximum, the statutory maximum of 0.1%, and then raise the overall PS rate by the same amount, so that you wouldn't be losing money for all your other public safety things. You would just be increasing the PSAP rate a little bit. So in other words, the total public safety rate would be 0.2869 rather than 0.25. And so that, that would actually fully fund the budget, bring enough revenue in. And because the budget probably wouldn't be wouldn't be fully spent, it would allow the city to build up a little bit of the dispatch center to build up a little bit of reserves, so that in advance of the restructuring of lit. And it's like before you retire, you start squirreling money away to make sure that you have enough to kind of bridge the gap until all your retirement payments that are started.
But to be fair, we're not anticipating that funding is going to disappear in 29. It's going to be configured different.
Yes, but from our perspective, from the city's perspective, we have zero control. So we have to assume, yeah.
So just stick around.
Yeah, I think we all agree we want a dispatch center that actually answers the phone.
Yeah.
And dispatches the right thing.
Yeah.
But that's just, okay, so let me just, and then go on to the final piece. So those are the 3 options. Again, they are not mutually exclusive in any way. And then the final screen, this is a screen you all have seen before. There's a version of it in your packet. This, I have changed it just because, like I mentioned before, we now know that the lit the overall lit has gone up by 5.38%. So I made that's really the only change from what you see in your packet. And that this just shows, if you essentially did nothing, again, this is these 3 columns here. If you did nothing, this is how much comes out to that $12.3 million comes out for total for public safety. That 3.1 million goes to dispatch, and then all the rest gets divvied up among Monroe County, Bloomington, Ellisville, and Steinsville. And then these last 3 columns are just, I call it the fund the budget scenario. And that's where we raise the PSAP rate to the maximum, come up with that $4.9 million. As you can see, we still wind up with the same amount for public safety, for all the other public safety functions that gets divvied out to the county and the cities. So that's what I've got. happy to answer any other questions, or we can move on. Yes.
So this question is something that I should probably know the answer to, but, and I have. So the county's, PSAP budget is, I guess what I wanna know is if we're taking an amount out of county reserves, does that leave that 20% to cover any county, budgeting?
You do not,
So we don't have.
there is no expenses coming out of that
It's
county.
all business going, okay.
One payment that goes over to the city as part of the interlocal.
And that's separate from PS Lit and we're managing
Yes.
that, okay. thank you.
Totally separate
Thank
from
you.
it,
Yeah.
yes.
Does your option 3, back a slide, does your option 3 use the reserves, or does your option 3 keep the reserves in place?
They were, I did them all independently,
Mhm.
but you can overlap them to
Yeah.
whatever degree that you want.
But just your option 3 raises the rate and has no need to dip into those reserves? Is my
I
question?
chose not to.
Right, okay.
I mean,
So-
you can always transfer reserves. I mean, that's one thing, once
But
the
this
money's
is a safe
there.
approach. Option 3 is the safest.
Option 3 is actually raising the rate.
Yeah, I mean, safe in the sense that you raise the rate and get more revenue and you keep your reserves.
Yes.
So the county is not does not appropriate any PSAP funds for use by the county. It's
No.
only,
It goes to the dispatch,
There's-
which we consider.
Because of our interlocal.
Yeah,
This is a.
Right.
but we don't have any separate things and that's what I was,
There's literally in the budget that the county council appropriates, there's one line in that fund, which is the interlocal agreement
Mhm.
transfer.
yeah. So-
Years ago,
so we
they
could
used to-
consider that a reserve.
Exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
It is meant to be jointly.
How much is in there?
It's over 3.2. I don't have direct visibility into that, but I think when we prepped for the earlier meeting, for
Yeah.
the June meeting, Angie and Jeff Cockrell and I got together and the auditor, I think we determined. it was-
And the county can't spend that on anything other than
Yeah.
dispatch. So, I mean, as long as we have a joint dispatch center, that would have to be spent on the joint dispatch center. If in some imaginary world, the county and the city stood up its own dispatch center, so they could use that 3.2 for their dispatch. Which I don't anticipate happening, but.
All right, are there questions for Controller McKim regarding his presentation and the 3 options?
I think you can come back and ask questions once if you have anything else after you've seen the budget, or I don't know if Larry's gonna talk about any processes, but.
Is there a time period for that's optimal for implementation of the rate?
And that's
Yeah. So, the drop dead deadline for implementing the new rate is essentially November 1st, when the legislative bodies set their rates for the year, but you have to back up from that, at least, almost a month. So these would have to be proposed really no later than October 1st, essentially. And just on the timeline currently that the city council and the county council are on, those would need to be at least proposed before September 13th, which is 10 days before the introduction of the legislation that sets the annual rates. Because there's a 10-day notice period for all of those for appropriation ordinance and setting the taxing rates. Then you have to wait a minimum of 10 days after that initial hearing, because you hold a public hearing during that time, until you can pass the rate. So you have to give yourself plenty of runway. So just realistically, if there's going to be a recommendation for an increased rate from this body to the local income taxing bodies, it needs to happen probably at this meeting and then get it on their calendars as soon as possible, so they consider it for September and October passage.
Okay, so
Soon.
essentially, so Jeff, what's the hit for the average? Rural county resident?
So
What,
maybe we can start with so we would raise the total rate from 0.25 to 0.2869.
Mhm.
So what is that, raising it 0.1369?
Math.
Yeah, so it's about 4 cents, yeah. Something like that.
4 cents on
So
whatever dollar.
if you've got, $5,000 salary. Oh, sorry, that's percent, so that would be up $27.
Per,
So that sounds right, for $75,000
Over the
salary
course of the year.
over the course of the year, yeah. Sorry, that's.
So, should we move ahead to look at the budget for, central dispatch? Or PSAP,
That's good, that,
so to make sure we don't have any questions about that.
that was a $27 increase over what's current, or was that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Over.
Increase.
So those, let's see. I think it's page 9 in the packet. Oh, no, those are the sheets for 26, let's see, 27 budget proposals. Yeah, if we look at just money coming from PSAP, it's page 18 in the packet. Is what's proposed for next year. And the comparison table on this sheet is the 2025 actual expense of the last full year expenditures.
Is this correct?
Are you on page
This is what was pulled, this
one?
particular version is what was pulled from the dispatch policy board adopting a budget.
Is this the one dispatch policy board adopted? If so, when, I think there were some adjustments based upon.
Yeah, if there are adjustments, we didn't receive the adjustments.
I think there's some adjustments based on COLA and the new salary study that are maybe not included in this specific.
Yeah, I think the version we want to include is the version that was actually included in the city council's budget proposal. Because that would, yeah, and that's the main change was that COLA, when the budget was originally formulated, they assumed 2% and it was proposed at 2.7%. So that's the.
So
Can we pull that up?
Yeah, I'll pull that. Just give me a second there. Talk amongst yourselves.
Does anybody have a hard stop at 9 o'clock?
I have to go to a meeting at 9, but I'm not necessarily, you guys can pick up.
Andy?
Yeah,
You-
I can go. I can go a little longer.
Okay, Richard?
I can go as long as we need to.
Thank you. I mean, I don't think it'll be much later than 9, but it might be.
tomorrow morning, I am done.
Right?
I'm trying to pull it up myself.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm actually just going into the financial system, to see if it's.
I'm just pulling it up in the packet. Of course, that doesn't help if I have it,
But there were no other changes much other than that goal, that's correct.
other than like,
The COLA increase, the change from 2 to 2.7.
Yeah, let me just, I'm gonna go ahead and show.
You should.
Yeah. So,
I'm showing 4,470,569. Wait a minute, that's less than what is on the sheet.
okay. Does this look right, guys? Because this is what's actually in the plan.
We're assuming we can see it through here.
Alright.
So sorry.
Right.
4.8,
Yeah,
4.1.
so why in our budget packet do we have something that says 4 point?
On,
Or,
on the actual budget book, if you look at page 53 of the budget book, that's where you'll see
Oh, yeah, and the numbers that I did in my,
it rounds up to the next dollar.
4.8, and that's the number that I used in my presentation.
looks like most of it is the salaries, which makes sense, but there's some increase in other services and charges. Some,
Yeah, so this would be the correct, this is the version that's actually in front of the city council, and,
I see it now.
So your projection on option, what would it be for? The total funding of dispatch by raising the rate was on 4.8. Figure, correct?
yeah, it wound up being a little bit more because of that 5.8%,
Sure.
but yeah.
Okay, so just to be clear, because I don't know if everybody heard what Councilmember Oldham said. So the scenarios you gave us, Controller McKim, are based on this $4.8 million.
Yeah, that number was what appeared in the,
Okay,
exactly the number that appeared in my spreadsheet that I showed her.
okay. So this was approved by the Dispatch Policy Board, which has membership from Ellisville
Membership as dictated by the local agreement, yeah.
and Norton. Yeah.
The budget with the 2% was improved. They're gonna, that change to going to 2.7 was made after they approved it, because there's in the interlocal, it has to be approved, like early, like by the end of June. So they're gonna go back and ratify the 2.7.
The other increase was in category 3.
looks like it's insurance and electorate.
So that was already approved,
So,
the
Yeah.
category 3 changes.
Yeah, we have our groups.
okay, so it's gonna spread. Why would that have changed? The repairs, I mean, maybe.
Inflation.
Everything,
In every-
price of
I
everything.
get why it would increase just generally, but then from what was submitted to what was approved, did it?
Well, 26 budget's on the left, now we're talking about 27 budget on the right, so that's what you're seeing with inflation.
No, the only changes that were from when it was submitted, but there are two changes that happened after it was approved by the dispatch. One was the insurance, health insurance increase went up 9%. And then the other was the COLA, the cost of living was proposed to 2.7% rather than 2%.
So the category 3 didn't change.
Not between those two.
Not between the two budget votes.
Got it, that's.
Between years they did.
Sure.
All right, any questions or concerns from committee members? Larry, can we get this sheet like retroactively appended to the meeting?
We'll put it with the memorandum, I'll send it to Tony, we'll circulate it.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so let me go back to our agenda. We already talked about cash reserves. Distributions to qualified providers, we didn't have any applications, so that's an easy one. So let's get down to the rate and the different scenarios that the controller presented. Thoughts from committee members?
Yeah, I do. Hey, Jeff, could you go back to that slide that gives us the different versions?
Yes.
And I apologize to seem a little discombobulated, I'm gonna say this, but being blunt, we have spent 3 years, 4 years now with the state saying, oh, it's gonna go in effect here, it's gonna go in effect here, it's gonna go in effect here, and that keeps getting bumped because they've yet been able to cure what they're gonna wanna do in the end with what we're doing now. So my fear is if we do not go into 29, 30, 31, whatever it becomes, and I hate to raise taxes, but if we don't come into that with a very, very healthy reserve, and with being at our maximum levy or close to it, the state of Indiana, they're gonna go, you know what, you're right, you don't need that much, because but what they don't see is we've been undercutting it by jumping into reserves every year. Plus, simply the fact that everything goes up. And that includes personnel, that includes materials, that includes electricity. I really don't want to get us to the point where we've got a $33,000 operating balance. Even though there's reserves in the county, that still leaves you no wiggle room. There's no room for emergencies. There's no room for, take your pick of whatever, very expensive piece of machinery just died. So if we start looking at pushing that rate out, and again, I'm pretty against raising taxes, but in this case, the state of Indiana is backing us into a corner where we really don't have too many choices, because we have no idea what they're gonna do. And that keeps getting bumped every year, because they even can't figure it out. So, to me, the only real option for us is option 3, where we bump the rate up. Again, it is $27, and I understand it's $27 based on a $70,000 salary. So that's gonna go up for folks, but that healthy reserve plus actually funding this budget out of what we're getting in this year gives us that lifespan in the long term, should the state decide to do something we're not anticipating.
What is there a new maximum of PS lit? It was originally 0.25%.
No, there's an overall maximum to the expenditure rate, which is the PS lit plus economic development plus certified shares. And I used to know all that in my sleep, and it's been a little while, but there's definitely headroom to increase it by that. But yeah, there's no longer a PS lit cap.
There's just a cap between the two.
There's a cap.
A total.
2.9% total.
Yeah. That's
So
is that what it
increase
is now?
to this piece of the pie impacts the other expenditure.
No, that's why you raise the whole PS lit as well as PSAP lit, just to make sure that nothing else is impacted. Basically, it holds harmless all the other public safety functions in the city, the county, and cities.
So. Sorry. So. I'm new here. So, the remainder of the PS lit, other than the PSAP, is for capital expenses.
Not, the city has typically used it for capital expenses. That's not in the statute. It is reserved for public safety. The county has tended to use it for sheriff's deputies, for jail, while the city has tended to use it for police and fire capital. But that's not required by law.
I guess how much is like discretionary in terms of like, you need new equipment or something, and I don't want to defer maintenance with the costs or some things like that, but it's expensive, but. I mean, could a greater share of PSAP assume than with this total budget?
Well, right now, the PS lit budget that's in front of you is over $2 million in deficit if it's all actually spent.
Yeah.
So, the chief may want to talk about the importance of staying on maintenance schedule. I know that's been a huge issue with the fire department.
I'm working through.
Yeah, that was my first. I was like, can't you guys wait on this truck for a few years?
On the electrical side, we're paying both fire and police out of those funds to get us the number of officers and firefighters we actually need. Otherwise, we would be doing that.
Yeah, that's right. So my other question is, I mean, obviously central dispatch is very important. You don't want, I mean, a position of overtime is expensive, plus there's a cost in terms of people's mental health and things like that. You have many fill positions. I mean, I wouldn't say this is like a crisis situation, but I will say it's it's alarming. Right? You need a fully staffed central dispatch, and you're having trouble filling those. And certainly the salary increases is relative to other communities paying with their salary.
Yes, it does. And we've actually, been able to hire dispatchers from other communities, paying more.
Yeah.
But it's a very stressful job. There we looked at the schedule this year earlier, and we switched it. They wanted to go to 12-hour shifts, which allowed them more time off. Because there's always mandatory overtime with the short staff. And that was just to keep a minimum number of people in there to keep it operating.
No, my understanding was that you've also changed the shift structure to try to.
Yeah, we went to the Pittman.
So you may want to tell everybody.
Yeah, so,
Excuse me, can you unshare so that the people online can see us
Sorry.
as we're talking? Thank you.
so some of the employees wanted to do 12-hour shifts, some wanted to do the 8-hour shifts. So what we ended up doing was, we looked at that scheduling and ended up switching it to 12 hours because it gave them more time off, which is what they wanted. With the mandatory overtime, they were having, the dispatchers were having a hard time being able to take time. And, so constantly working in there, it's not like they can get up and go outside because of the phones and the radio. So it's a very stressful job. And so what we did to try to help was we switched the working hours. And went to this Pittman schedule. That seemed to make them, really happy. They liked that. It did give them more time off. But again, the ultimate goal is to get fully staffed so that we don't have to rely on overtime. It's a very lengthy process to hire and train a dispatcher.
Do we have any sense of how our PS lit rate compares to other counties?
Not offhand, but that information would be on the state budget agency website. Let's see.
I mean, I'm also leaning towards increasing the overall PS lit rate. But I don't want us to be like, we're the only community in Indiana that's above 0.25.
Well, if I can, the problem is when you look at surrounding counties, we are exponential orders of magnitude busier in those
Yeah.
centers.
No, we'd have to compare with other.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to find a like
Yeah.
center to compare that against. Good luck with that.
Let me just share. Sorry, a quick. So this is just this is a chart. I know, there's a lot of numbers on there. This is on the state budget agency website. And actually, I showed this in the fiscal committee as well. This is the report that shows the 2027 first estimate at lit distributions. So it shows all those lit numbers, but then it also shows the rates. So you can actually
Can we make it a little bigger? Thank you.
So public safety is that second column there. It's pretty close. There's a pretty wide variety of public safety rates.
Yeah.
And 0.25 is not, by any stretch of the imagination, the highest or the lowest.
Okay, that's reassuring.
So I'd like to revisit the option 2 as maybe a compromise. Maybe we do a little bit less of an increase, but also, I mean, if the reserves are like, if the revenue can maintain a reserve at 20%, and we're including the county reserves, because it's almost as though we're double reserving. I was like, there's gotta be a better word. But, if you're trying to get the city's spreadsheet to say that we've got an operating balance of X amount, but you're ignoring the counties, that's more than we need. So.
Sorry.
No, please.
The problem with that is that works for 1 year. But it doesn't work for year 2, 3, 4, 5. If we don't cure our own problem in-house right now, it is irrelevant how many reserves we have because we'll spend it down. So if we don't fund this budget off of this tax, irrelevant what the reserve is, eventually someplace comes down the line where we are in a deficit and can't get our way back out. Because we have no idea what the state's gonna do to us.
Yeah.
So if we can go into, and again, this is my personal thoughts, If we can go into 29 tentatively now with as healthy reserves as we can, I don't even care if it's 75% reserves. That gives us that room to weather whatever the state did and figure out a way out of the hole the state puts us in. If we spend down those reserves now, we'll never catch up. And then if we get hit with a deficit from the state, we're way in the water. And then other things will suffer. Whether it be no more fire trucks, no more police cars, no more sheriff's units, no more jail, no more take your pick or whatever else. Eventually, we're gonna have to pay that.
Jeff, at the point at which PS Lit goes away, any remaining funds there will still be segregated from general.
As far as I know, yeah, that's just like, yeah, what we were saying, yeah,
They have
if
to
it's
use it.
statutorily
Say
restricted, then they'd still have to be spent in that way.
So we would still separate them in some way, even if it's not a separate fund, it would be.
It would probably be in a separate fund, and I know I said,
I
yeah,
think separate,
earlier,
yes.
I made a blanket statement that it would all be swept into the general fund, and that is not true in case it's statutory. So, yeah, you are correct.
Okay, that's good.
But at this point, it would just be a county, just to be clear, county reserves, not a city reserve, because we don't have a city reserve. This one, right? We don't have.
Well, we'll have,
I mean, at this
mean-
point right now, do we have a bunch in reserves at the city?
well, that's where I was showing you that if, you know,
Yeah.
if all the appropriations were spent, no, it would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
substantially whole.
But there's no way in our current interlocal agreement that we can ask the county to give us money to put in our reserves.
Sure you can.
Yeah.
It's just an appropriation.
Under the current,
If it's
agreement.
necessary, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just been a conversation, I think, over the years with the county and the city. And I don't think, it might be different now, but I don't think the county was inclined to do that previously.
Right, and I know there was some, you know, in the past, because the, at least partially because I think the PSAP money was coming with PS Lit. I think there was some distrust as to whether or not the county really had this, or the city had this kind of secret huge reserves that they want. So, no, I mean, I think there was some of that, and that I think the former controller and city council spent a lot of time separating that out, and city council passed a resolution where all that money was accounted for and transferred over, and it did take a lot of effort to extract the two.
Okay, so the current county reserve is not being utilized. It's just hanging out there. And, you know, it's been 3 minutes, so now I need to ask you, what percent is that of then the budget proposed for 2027 for PSAP?
Well, I think the county reserves is about 3.2 million.
Yeah,
I believe, and it doesn't change because the current year, all the money that's coming in is going out. So they're not building up any new reserves except what came in supplemental.
Is that in addition to the 911 fund?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
totally independent of the.
So there's also funding, extra funding sitting in the county in the 911.
Right, but that can't be used for salaries.
Right.
Or at least they did.
and it's fully budgeted too, right?
There is some reserves there also, which could hand, but I mean, that's the sort of thing that was used for like buying new radio, buying new
Yeah.
equipment, and that equipment all seemed shiny new, and we did this for the first time. And my understanding is it's kind of nearing the end of its useful.
Getting at.
I know, remember
New
we did this-
SPOAs with the fire department, remember?
Yeah, exactly.
8 or 10 years ago, we had this whole discussion about SPOAs.
So just to explore this possibility, is it, so if we were to propose a split rate increase that we would need for full funding to spend on reserves? In other words, could we do a stepwise increase in rates? Is there anything statutory that would prevent us from, say, deploying you know, half the rate increase one year and then
Well, you only have 2 years before it all goes away. But yeah, I mean, yes, the short answer is you could do it all again, right? And Larry, they could do the procedure twice.
But as soon as the state allows us to do it. fine.
Yeah, unless something gets changed to say, hey, no more change, no more changes.
That's always, I don't know how Larry feels about this, but as a lawyer, I like to rely upon the law that you have at the time because you just don't know what the state's gonna do. So if you have the opportunity to, as Jeff said, save for retirement, while the state, before the state changes it on us. It's something. Consider.
I'm gonna ask something, it sounds like I've already asked it again, but I wanna be very specific. And I'm looking at Margie because it's about the current agreement, interlocal agreement. Under the current interlocal agreement, could the city ask the county for money to put in the city's reserves?
Yes,
PSAP.
yes, and I think the process for that would be, you know, the sheriff and the police chief would go to the dispatch policy board and say, we need this. And then I think that policy board would say, hey, please do this. And then, you know, we talk, and the county folks are on the dispatch policy boards. But I think that's the way to go. And then practically speaking, Jeff would talk to Auntie Bird.
So
Yeah.
the request would have to originate with the dispatch policy board.
I think that's per the agreement, that's the way it should happen.
I guess I wasn't thinking that we would just be moving money to build up the city reserves. I guess I was thinking more along the lines of using it, spending it, if we have more than 20% overall between the two.
I mean, I think that's the goal, is to, I mean, they're not budgeting to.
Well, I mean, the way it was phrased, it's like, we'll take this reserve and put it over here in these reserves, and that's not really, there's no real
Yeah, I
point in doing that, but.
I'm just exploring options. I don't know if there's any benefit to that.
I'll say historically, I think the county would frown upon taking their reserves and just giving them to us to put in our own reserve.
Yeah.
I think they'd be more inclined to spend it, but I don't think they'd be inclined to give us their extra money pull for them.
And there's no reason to do so, as long as we have a reasonable interlocal agreement that allows us to tap those county reserves if an emergency happens or something.
And a county council that's willing to appropriate, and a county board of commissioners that are willing to put forward that.
Right, right.
There are some,
Willing partners.
there's some players, yes, and
Yeah.
partners.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and there may be future needs, we kind of hit on it, but there may be future needs for, given, you know, that the consoles and all the equipment was purchased by the city and the county together when we built that new dispatch center. It's been a while. My guess is that there's gonna be a future need for expenditures in that regard, like new equipment.
Do they not have like that in a replacement schedule in the budgeting?
I think they do. And as Mark said, it's probably several $1 million worth of hardware.
Well, and then potentially a move.
Potentially something as easy as a lightning strike. And now you need
I can tell you right now,
No, I mean, potentially the dispatch center
No, I-
might be moving.
I get right, but even aside from that, lightning hit, and you need it today, you don't need it in a year and a half.
Hopefully our insurance policy would cover it. Hopefully that's what we.
So like I said, you need it today, not 6 months from now, when the insurance company decides to give you money.
Well, let me, go back to the percentages. So let me put a motion on the table if I may, even though I'm the chair, I can still do a motion. I will move that we increase the PSLET tax rate for 2027, or we make a recommendation to the relevant city, county, Ellisville, Steinsville bodies to raise the PSLET rate from 0.25% to 0.2869%.
So then,
Okay, we have a first, a second. Roll call. That's my rule.
Well, we could have more
So
discussion.
if you want to have more
Yeah.
discussion, I just,
Yeah.
And just to clarify, so it is to the recommendation is to the local income tax council, right? I believe that's what it's
Okay,
called.
That is
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I know, it's one of those obscure things, and
But they
I,
don't have to be together, right? They meet together. Andy, Richard, do you have any comments? We haven't heard anything.
and
from you.
Courtney's too.
Oh, Courtney's here too, okay. Andy's shaking his head.
No, no comments.
Okay. Richard shaking his head. Courtney, hello.
Sorry, I have laryngitis. No comments.
Do you have any comments? No. You want to croak at us? Okay. Sorry.
Well, as chair of this committee, we'll report this to the council for the next regular session.
I will. Councilor Wills, you had an idea, kind of a different idea, so. What do you think?
Well, I am struggling a bit with the idea of increasing the lit, just in general, but, it does seem to be prudent, you know, to have a self-sustaining approach to budgeting. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that'd work. Yeah, I mean, it seems like what a good idea. Overall. And then we have reserves. The lightning strikes and such.
Yeah, I have to agree with, Councilmember Oldham that we don't know what the state's gonna do and they're unpredictable and they often act in ways that are not beneficial to local government, so I say as long as we can for something as essential as central dispatch, let's squirrel away some money.
I agree. I don't think we can say half measures at this point in circumstances, so.
It's unfortunate we're having to do it, but the problem is we all have competing priorities with our own PS lit funds. P South, we all are in the same boat. If we don't fund it correctly, we're gonna have a problem with something.
And going forward, I think the fire rate that is allowed is not for police or dispatch. So that, you know, you might talk about that. There is an extra rate that can be put in place by the county for fire EMS, but it doesn't work for police or dispatch. Yeah,
Which is odd, but
it is odd.
And might change.
Maybe
Yeah.
not cheap.
it might change.
All right, are we ready for, is there any public comment? Yes, there is somebody with their hand raised on Zoom.
Yes, Kevin Keogh. Quickly, I've been listening to this last hour. The first discussion seemed to be a budgetary basis. He has his own set of books. My concern, it didn't include a real discussion of actual results. That seems to be another set of books. But I think this would come into play, especially when you start talking about unspent and you talk about reserves. Again, importance of the beginning fund balance. Also, doesn't seem to talk about 5 years out. I think anytime you start talking about this, you need to look 5 years out and how the heck you're going to, because it seems you got a problem with the funding. So it seems like it's going to be around for a while. So you want to go out 5 years. Then you had the discussion of the budget. And again, the importance of the basis of accounting and communicating to the public and the need for high quality data. I would always hope, and that we would actually have the audited financials for 2025 now. So you can start there to say what was actually spent in 2025 and really, and what was the actual fund balance or the reserves for this account. And then you would have the actual to date for 2026, and we're in August. And then you'd have a really good estimate for 2026. And then you get into the budgetary basis, which is focused on setting the appropriations and putting that into stone. And so I think that makes it easier for the public. And then also including that 5-year plan out to really focus on, okay, we have a problem today. This is how we're going to attend to it. But then looking out the future to make sure that we don't forget about what our plans and how we've set this, because this sounds to me this is pretty much fixed cost. And it's important to the city. It's one of your highest priorities. So anyway, that's my comments. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Pugh. Any other public comments? All right, seeing none, I think we are ready for a roll call vote.
Could I ask the controller to respond to the public comment? Do you have any? I mean, put you on the spot, but I mean, you might have something relevant.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers that I showed you earlier in that 4B format did start with actual cash that's in that fund. And I think we did talk about actuals a little bit. We didn't actually look at the actuals for the category 2, 3, and 4. But I think I did mention that the actuals, we talked fairly extensively about the actuals and the personnel, and we know that the actuals are less than the budgeted amount because of vacancies. I guess that's all I have to say there. On 5-year, yeah, it would be nice to be able to do a 5-year, I think, right now, because there's such a big mystery about what the county and city are going to do with respect to the 2029 rates, that there are so many assumptions that a 5-year plan would be. I just think it's premature to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's an important thing to suggest, and I'm glad that Mr. Pugh made the comments that he did. We don't have anything definite to be able to do.
Our time horizon is 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Okay. Sure. Thanks.
Can I make one comment about that, Jeff? The must council, if it meets, when it meets this fall, is this something that you could discuss?
Yeah, that's a good point. There is a kind of a structured framework for county and city and the towns to have this discussion about lit rates. It's called MUST, Municipal Unit Strategic Task Force, and it's the county would need to call it, but that the PSAP lit rate will definitely very much be a component of that discussion.
Yeah, and I don't know, Kate, if that's something that's on your guys' radar. So yeah.
Yeah, you talked about it in last week.
And we've met since to discuss how we might do that in a way that is inclusive, because we're only required to invite this many, but there are a lot of people affected, and so we'd like to be more inclusive. But we'd also like to have it productive. So, that requires some facilitation. So we're looking at the basically ROI on having a consultant help us through our financial advisor. There you go. More information on that. There you go.
Well, thank you for those responses. Are there any final comments before we vote on the motion? So again, to refresh our memories, the motion is to recommend to the Monroe County Local Income Tax Council an increase in the PSAP rate from 0.25% to 0.2869%.
That's PS. That's the PS limit rate.
The PS lit rate.
Yeah, you said PSAP.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But you might want to
PS
add in there
overall.
PSAP, raise the PSAP rate to 0.1, because you're raising the overall cap, but you also want to raise that, if you're going to do it, you also want to raise the PSAP portion of one.
Is that one motion? Because could that be in one motion?
Yeah, so the way I understand it is you're moving to raise the PS lit rate for the purposes of being able to raise the PSAP rate. So those are connected items, so you can make that one motion, just to make it clear that that's what you're.
Okay. So to increase the PS lit rate to 0.2869%, and within that to increase the PSAP rate to 0.1%. Is that right?
That sounds right. And just to be clear, that's not double raising, it's just raising one.
Within.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just the same rates. We have a second, just.
Nice.
All right, I think we can call the roll.
Councilmember Woods,
Yes.
Councilmember Oldham,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowell,
Yes.
Councilmember Piedmont Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Daly. My apologies.
Me? Did you say Daily? Sorry,
Yes.
yes.
Councilmember Ruff,
Yes.
that passes.
Carter.
He is non.
Oh, is he not voted? Huh?
Mr. Carter, would you like to voice your approval for this? Although you're a non-voting member?
Or Stein's bill.
Or disapprove.
Yeah, I approve it.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's unanimous.
All right, very good. I think, as far as schedule, there's no reason for this group to meet again. So, I want to thank, Larry Allen from the, City Council office for organizing us, and can you work with county colleagues to
Yeah.
make sure they get this recommendation and get the wheels in progress for their works?
Yeah, talking on you all.
Any other business?
I think we need a motion to allow you to approve minutes and send them back. What we've done in years past.
Oh, okay,
That way we don't have to circulate them to everybody for approval.
all right.
I wish that we do that.
So the motion on the table is to approve minutes, authorize Chair Piedmont Smith to approve the minutes. Second. Okay. Any discussion? Public comment? Wonderful. Councilmember Wilks,
Yeah.
Councilmember Oldham.
Yeah.
Councilmember Rallo,
Yes.
Councilmember Piedmont Smith,
Yes,
Councilmember Daly,
Yes.
Councilmember Ruff.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
all right. Is there any other business? Is there any other public comment? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you so much.